you all pass out these packets showing clearly the information that the feds are seeking, not just of Barbara, but of her 3 A's? Why were those passed around?
They were FOIA, and under the FOIA law, we have to make them public.
Gentlemen, both of you.
Is there any chance that Barbara Bird Bennett, that you could negotiate a new contract with her for after June 30th at this point?
This is an ongoing investigation. We don't have.
I'm not asking about the investigation. I'm asking about her status as superintendent. Would you actually consider having her continue as CEO after June 30th in light of this?
It's an ongoing investigation till we really know the facts. We're not going to make any determination about that.
Gentlemen, both of you voted for the contract in question with Soups Academy. Both of you did. Why?
So we have an extensive and we think well thought out process for contract approval. We had a very strong commitment to invest in our principals. It's one of the pillars of our future. We believe that principals are a critical element to successful schools. And the truth of the matter is that historically, we've not invested in our principals in ways that enhance their leadership skills and their management skills. So we knew that we agreed with an initiative that would pursue that kind of investment. And then we have a process by which management actually determines what is the best way to go about enhancing the professional development of our principals. That process was followed, and when the contract was presented to us, we went through, each of us individually, because we have briefings beforehand, to review the contract, and we thought all was in order, and so therefore we voted.
But two-part question. Were you aware of Dr. Bird Bennett's connection with Soups before she came to CPS, and did you not see any potential conflict of interest there?
So, yes, I was aware. I believe most of the board members were aware. I'll let Justice speak for himself. Dr. Bird Bennett had been a mentor coach for Soups, and one of the unique characteristics of the Soups process was this mentoring and coaching, which I believe is one of the reasons we found it an attractive one and one that made it somewhat unique. So the answer was yes, we know, but she had no contractual relationship with Soups after she joined CPS.
But did you see any conflict of interest there?
You know, the answer is no, because many of us have prior lives in which we engaged with organizations which we no longer have any relationship with that still might provide quality service to Chicago Police.
David, let me ask you that.
Is the Board of Education still going to sell $296 million in GO bonds on Tuesday, or will this be to delay it?
The latest information we have is that our underwriters believe we can move ahead with that transaction.
Why was it
Yes.
a sole source contract? It sort of tests credibility to think that there aren't numerous organizations in the United States that have the ability to train principals. I understand UIC has a program for that. Why was this a sole source contract? Why was it not put out to bid?
Well, there are multiple principal professional development programs. It's clear that we had defined a unique a set of circumstances that our process actually requires, and there's a review committee of this to assure that that's in fact the case, that in fact there's only one provider that can meet the requirements that we set up. It's only under those conditions in which we sole source a contract.
Was it tailored for Soups? I mean, you know, you can write RFPs in any way you want. Was the qualifications tailored? So
as I recollect, the most compelling argument for its uniqueness was the coach mentor program, which, to the best of my memory, other programs do not have. The ongoing coach mentor program.
David, can you
Mr. Vice President.
Conflict of interest.
Can you clarify when the lead is taking effect? The letter said the 20th and
Monday, she's effectively on leave.
And is it a paid leave? As a statement said previously.
I don't know what the statement said.
Why was
Is it
that
a paid
particular
leave?
method so important? Why was that particular method that made it a sole source contract so important?
whenever we're going out, whenever the district is going out for services, it defines the services it's looking for. The process that exists in our organization basically says to go out and find any vendors that can provide that set of services. If you can only find one, it falls then into our sole source process. Process moves ahead to basically confirm with the review committee that confirms that only one vendor can meet that process. That's the process that this one.
Mr. Vitale, with regards to
principals that are on the
we
board?
think it's a first-class process. We're not the only district in the country that uses a sole source process, but we will hire, we agreed that we will hire a third party to come and review that process and make sure that we are following best practice and that they're not going to improve our practice.
David, there's been allegations about the possible conflict of interest involving another one of your board members that's gotten a fair amount of press. Your friends over at the CTU today, Mr. Sharkey, noted that, and noted that you guys nonetheless approved work for the businesses that have connections to board members and senior staff, and suggested that other heads off your role besides Ms. Bennett. Do you have any intention of stepping down?
I have no intention of stepping down. As I've said before, many of us have had prior engagements with firms that do business with CPS. Some of these contracts are done in charter schools, which we don't control, and people can get into all of that. But the reality is that we think our policy, our ethics policies are first rate, and we all follow them.
Board members giving you notice today, many board members.
David, two things. Number one, would you just discuss the process that the board took to make certain that there was not a conflict with Barbara Byrd Bennett on this? I'm assuming it didn't come up in board discussion. And secondly, would you respond to some principals who have spoken to us in the last couple of days who have labeled the program as worthless?
So, with respect to the first, once again, any contracting goes through an extensive process in the district. Process has both legal and procurement rule reviews. All of that was done in this case. The sole source creates additional levels of review to assure that sole source is the only way to satisfy the service. The board and board members in their individual briefings were able to review all that and ask questions about that and did. And was satisfied that the knowledge that Barbara had previously worked with them. And despite all that factual knowledge, we believe it was an appropriate way to actually adjust it.
Now, what about the second question about?
Please address her contract and the status of it. There's information that there was an automatic renewal clause in March, and so that she's on the hook to be paid again for a full year. And I understand you may be looking at some termination clauses so that you get out from underneath her salary. Can you please step us through that?
Sure. Barbara's contract matures on June 30th of this year. She has the option to extend that contract for another year. She has not exercised that option. That is on the status of her contract.
So she'll be paid, she could potentially be paid for another year.
Obviously, it would depend on the outcome of all of this investigation, because when you go through the contract, there are a variety of termination opportunities for both sides in her contract.
But Barbara told me earlier today that she did in fact renew that option.
On the board.
Barbara told me earlier today that she has in fact exercised that option in writing by December 15th, as laid out in the contract. How in the world can CPS afford to pay two CEOs at this time, and how can parents and teachers trust you two to be running the Board of Ed when you voted for this contract in the first place?
I'm not being paid by CPS.
And I'm not paid by CPS.
But have any board members given you notice of their resignation?
David, please respond to that.
Yes.
Have any board
Can I
members?
respond to her question, please? The process is that Barbara, in December, needed to ask us if we intended to terminate her contract at the end of June. She did that. She sent us a letter saying, do you intend? A lack of response on our part means that we do. ultimate extension of the contract requires a next step, which has not taken place.
So does she not have the option to renew?
Is she being paid for this leave now, or no?
She has accumulated leave time, which will be compensated, and that will extend, I believe, it's for several weeks in terms of additional leave time that's available.
Will federal investigators be returning to the building?
Pardon?
Why should the public have any confidence in this board at this point?
The Chicago public school system has made enormous progress over the last several years. And I'm proud to say that this board has supported the management in those achievements. Jesse laid out many of those achievements. We are proud to have, in fact, helped the management and overseen the management in the exercise of that success.
Are you satisfied with the quality of work you've gotten from
Two
Supes?
principals on the board of directors already. Why not Mahalia Hines or Squincha? To be interim. Why not elevate a former principal who's actually an educator? As opposed to Jesse.
Well, we think Jesse has the perfect qualifications for.
Don't take
I want to brag
anything
about it. Thank you, but there are a number of issues that are frankly critical to us right now in our short-term agenda that rely on Springfield. I spent 6.5 years in Springfield, have great relationships still with the State Board of Education, in the General Assembly. Those are going to be critical, and I hope it's those of you to work to the benefit of the Chicago's school children over the next several months.
Jesse,
Have
as
you
board
spoken
member
with the
of
mayor?
people, will you be
David, do
paid
I
for your
do I
interim
surmise
service?
from your previous answer that it
interim
was the
service, will
intention
you
of the
be
board
paid
not
for
to
interim
renew her
service?
contract?
Not, that will all be pro bono.
No,
Because you said you didn't respond, that's what you implied.
no, non-response gives her the option.
And
That
did
option
you
has not.
respond?
We have not responded.
Do you have a deadline for response, or is it up to June
It was
30th?
in the past.
It was.
David,
Thanks, guys.
can I ask you?
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
What,